Ayari, this is the Global Digest think tank group. Why don't you briefly introduce to our audience what is your background? Please, Ayari.
I'm mainly a lawyer, an academic. I studied law in Tunisia, then in France, and I did my PhD in France, in Lyon, University of Lyon. I was also lecturer of international law in this university for almost 7 years. After that, I moved to Germany to the Max Planck Foundation for International Peace and the Rule of Law, which is part of the Max Planck Society, which is the biggest group of society of researchers in Germany, perhaps in Europe. I spent there 3 years. Now I'm more on a consultant with some international organization like International IDEA or UNDP or the International Organization of La Francophonie. So I have this double, I would say, hat to be an academic, but also to have done in recent years work on the ground by supporting some democratic transition, like in Tunisia, in Sudan. Some of them failed, unfortunately, like Sudan. But I have this double, I would say, experience. I'm an invited professor for some university like Lyon, Catholic University in Lyon, the Senghor University in Alexandria in Egypt, and some Tunisian universities. Mainly international law, public international law, the general course, like treaties, custom, etc. But I also am teaching human rights, humanitarian law, and all these fields. Good governance, democracy is more on my work with the international organization or the civil society, which is a work of capacity building.
I see. So, I don't know, you are more familiar with Arab countries or you are more familiar with Europe, which is more, you can say you are expert in.
I would say more Arab country, but we can also discuss of Europe. I have been living in Europe for 13 years, but I'm more expert of Arab and African countries.
Generally, in Arab countries, how they what is their perspective about human rights?
Okay, I know, I get. I will say the Arab country, you can classify them on three different categories.
Arab
You have,
country, three
yes,
category.
three categories. You have, you can classify them by geography. You have the Arab country in Asia or in the Gulf states. You have in North Africa, and also you can divide them on two kinds. The North African country like Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, which are, I would say, a mixture of African society and Arab societies. But you have also the Middle East, which is more Egypt, Jordan, with the Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and like Qatar and Emirates and all these countries. Uh, in this category, like I would say, for the first states, there is some progress. Usually, there is no culture of human rights in the Gulf states. Let's be honest, like in Saudi Arabia, in
Right.
Qatar or Emirates. They don't have traditions on that, but we can see some improvement in recent years. The society are being more open. It's due to business, but also to a lot of other things. A lot of foreigners are coming from Asia, Europe. So this society are developing and transforming. I will not say that there is a big protection of human rights in this country today, but there is some improvement. You have, after that, I would say, the North African states. And here, traditionally, we were more open state, more protection of human rights, not the, I would say, European standard. But after that, we had some authoritarian regime. In Egypt, Algeria, you have military regimes. In Tunisia, more policy regime. Until what we call, you heard about the Arab Spring in
Right,
2011. Yeah? It started in my country, in Tunisia, and this was, it started as a spring and finished on a very cold winter because the results were not good
I
at
see.
all. But it was a good initiative. It showed that Arab populations wanted freedom, wanted democracy, but I would say the way and the political dynamics and also I would say the geopolitical situation led to destroying this country like Libya, Syria, this completely destroyed these countries. In Tunisia, it was one of the best experience, but the economic situation was very bad. So this was not helping the democratic transition. So the Arab countries, the difference I would say between the Arab countries are like the same, like in Asia. If you say that between China and Japan, they are in Asia, but they're completely different, or between Myanmar and Vietnam, or so there is some similarities, but it's a lot of difference also.
Right, right. So you can say Morocco, Tunisia are moderate Islam religion compared to Gulf or those more radical Islam. Can you say it like that?
Historically, yes, this is what I'm talking. But today, like for example, I can't say that Emirates or Qatar are radical Islam. They're okay, conservative, but they are, as I said, developing. Tunisia, Morocco, yeah, they have tradition to be more open and more, I would say, have a more progressive interpretation of Islam. Yes, I completely agree on that.
I see. And you can say Morocco, Tunisia, Northern Africa countries, Arab countries are more democracy compared to Gulf countries. Or
Yeah, definitely. I would say at least more rule of law. We have more tradition of constitutions. Democracy, I would say, the I would say two countries. It was usually Lebanon after the civil war. It was a democracy with a lot of criticism, but at least with elections and regular elections. In Tunisia, it started since the revolution until now. But all the other Arab countries, I can't say there is democracy there. No. There is
why? Because
Morocco. Morocco, for example, is a monarchy, but not like a European monarchy. The king is the real
yeah,
power there.
well, I see.
Mhm.
So uh, Arab countries are still, you want to say they are reluctant to accept democracy norm and standard, human right norm and standard.
Okay, yeah, at least for concerning the political aspects of human rights,
Right,
yes, still very reluctant. Uh, it's, I will say, it's due to two reasons. First, there is no, as I said, big traditions in this country on, I would say, democracy. They were colonized, and before that, they were under the Ottoman Empire. So there is not a big history of political participation of the populations. And second reason now, and also I'm asking you, democracy, or I see the model, or Western model today, is not really attractive because it's suffering even in Europe and in America.
right. Backsliding, a lot of democracy backsliding.
I think we have to rethink, and this is uh, also I have the same discussion with some like African friends, Asian friends, to have our I would say not own perspective like this. Some dictators say we have our proper democracy to say we have it. No, but we have to rethink about a system that works for us, that led to the most important thing is to protect human integrity. Is the most important to protect people and to let people live having a good life, good health, good education. This is the most important thing. Participation for destroying our country is not a good idea. This is what happened in some democratic experience. So we have to rethink about new ways to have rule of law, human rights, but also to protect our states. Myanmar, Tunisia are very young states. I don't know how old Myanmar is, 60 years old, 70 years old. The age of state is very young. France, at 70 years old, it was not a democracy. Same for other countries in Europe. So they get their time to make mistakes, to build their own, I would say, system. And this we have to rethink about it and not just take some concepts which are good in theory, but in practice sometimes we do very bad with these concepts.
Right. I mean, we know backsliding of democracy, but we still did not find alternative to democracy because maybe you can have another one is an authoritarian system like monarchy or dictatorship or military dictator or communist or something. Well, the people will agree for that. I don't know. Most Arab population, they are still willing by dictator rule, or they prefer dictator rule or religious leadership to rule the country instead of people participation, instead of people-oriented political system. How did you see Arab country? Yes.
I think Arab populations are like all over. They want freedom, but when they tested that and they saw their economy destroyed, their like life conditions decreasing, they say like before, at least with authoritarian regime we can eat. We are not like in this situation. So now some of them are even against democracy because their life conditions were like decreasing in I would say very in a very bad position. I would say, but the majority I think are for freedom, for democracy. But as I said, which democracy? I can give you an example for Tunisia, for example. We started with like high expectations, but without controlling money. Money were coming from outside, from a lot of countries, Gulf states, European states, American states. It was without any sovereignty of the country. The country was open. Everyone wanted to have his people from other countries. This is not, I would say, a good way to have a democratic transition. You need also to protect your country to a certain stand from, I would say, interference, but also from money. The people who have money in democracy, they start to buy power, buying votes, buying parties. And this also in some, I would say, democratic country with long traditions. This is why I think the examples were not very good recently. I don't know which are the success story of democracy in recent years, but a very few. You have good vibes from the beginning, a good, we say, spirit, and after that, I think the same happened in Myanmar after
Right.
like the agreement, and after that, governing is difficult. So this is why it's not always black or white, and so, well, this is my criticism for some human rights activists. They see it only from the perspective of a human rights victim. He can't imagine himself as a ruler, and the rulers, it's not always easy for them. Like we have a lot of difficulties.
So I mean, in Islam religion in Arab country, Islam, I mean, usually there was a lot of Islam emperor, you know, Muslim emperor. They used to rule. That time, that was a kind of monarchy system or religious-based political system, or so people prepare for those systems.
In history, Islam is very democratic. They
Really?
Yes, we have an obligation to do what we call the shura. The shura in Islam is consultations. You say, like, you have to consult people to rule. Think like in Quran. But the application of this approach was not always the case in history.
I
It
see.
was yeah, it was a king, I would say the prince, after the prophet. They started at the beginning to make consultations, but after that, one took the power and gave to his son. It became hereditary, and and this was the beginning of like the end of this democratic experience in Islam. But if you read the text, there is a lot of thinkers who say that Islam was pushing for democracy, for freedom. It was against slavery. It was at his time, but it was a revolution. So it's I would say some people they forgot the spirit of the religion, and they have only a very traditional interpretation. But it's a question of interpretation.
See, so interpretation can be misleading or misunderstanding among a lot of Islam believers. So you point out there is a room for democracy in Islam religion in the history. So
Yeah.
Islam used to be many way of democracy system, but the people application are misleading and they
I
didn't
will, I will,
apply.
I will just also stress that in history, and this is verified, that the other religions lived with Muslims in a very good way. Like Jews, they lived very peacefully with Muslim until the creation of Israel. Christian lived in peace with Muslim. You can like history say like even in the war of the this cross wars when in Jerusalem with Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, they were treated very well by Muslims. So minorities were always been protected. So this is also kind of, I would say, democratic principle to protect minorities in your state. And minorities were always protected in Muslim states.
But many people see Muslim provocative or extremist. They always violence, like terrorists came from Muslims. So because of Muslim religion encourage them to use violence and use a weapon, knife, or those, to violence. Is there such kind of things from Islam system?
Uh, I will. This is more a political, I will say, matter more than the religious matter. When this thing started, but because we forgot, Islam, for example, in Asia, people became Muslim not by the invasion of Arabs, it's by trade of Muslims. Muslim never arrived to Asia, never arrived in Africa. It's not like Christianity, which was forced by colonization. No, in majority of case, people become Muslim because they see the values of Muslim traders, Muslim merchants negotiating, and they like them. It was not by force in history. They never arrived to Myanmar Muslim or to Indonesia. No, never. The maximum it was in Iran today. In Africa, maximum it was in Morocco, but you find Senegal Muslim, Mali Muslim, Nigeria Muslim, because they saw like that the Muslim are not violent, but they have good values. When the problem started in the 80s, when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. It started from there. And because Soviet Union was a communist country against religion, to counter this Soviet Union, they were pushing Saudi Arabia to finance with America this extremist group to fight against Soviet Union in Afghanistan. And if you read like the newspaper that today say that Muslim is a violent religion, you will find that in the 90s, in the Sun, Bin Laden was called the warrior of freedom before he becomes a terrorist because he was fighting against Soviet Union. So this Salafist group, or I will say this religion, are more a political creation, but you don't find them in the religion.
I see. So you point out the violence in Islam begin mainly due to the Cold War, we can say, Soviet and American Cold War. There is a power competition, and Soviet invade Afghanistan. Then Islam population recede, and they fight back with the violence, guns, and those things. Then between this power game, power game between Soviet and West, that Muslim are in the middle using gun and all this violence. So that started terrorists, and it's including bad thing or good thing. Islam started violence. So from that time, you point out, right?
I would say it was a violent reading of Islam from some groups. But I would say even today, the majority of Muslims are very peaceful. You don't see Muslim attacking other countries or Muslim attack in our, at least in the Muslim countries, you don't see Muslim prosecuting other minorities from other religion. If you have information, but with this media, with all these things, if you have an attack by a Muslim, it's a terrorist attack. If it's an attack by a Christian, for example, a week ago, one Tunisian was attacked in Germany by German. They don't call it terrorist attack; they call it criminal attack. So all this also game with the terrorism, with all this, I would say, labels. What happened in recent years, and I think today we are the victims. Muslim, we are suffering from discrimination in a lot of places because of this. That we are violent, Islam is not compatible with human. With all this propaganda, we become victims.
See, so the name terrorist and extremism are mainly popular from 1980 after Soviet invasion of Afghanistan and the power game, global power game. Since then, Iraq, Afghan, Syria, all Middle East. So that was popularity of Islam terrorism in in the global image. You can say like that. And then how did you see Middle East issue? You know, the Hamas and, you know, Hezbollah. But Hamas, why they don't aware? Because they are mixing with the Palestinian population. You know, if they are together in the middle of Palestinian innocent people, they mingle with them, they live with them. So that they should know Israeli will attack all of them, innocent people, including Hamas. They can separately fight as a rebel to the Israeli. Why they are mixing with the people? I mean, we concern about humanitarian, you know, a lot of people.
This is, for example, like you ask a criminal escaping from police, going in a house. You don't destroy all the house with all the people living in. You just go and take the criminal. But the question also is how they're presenting the problem. For example, let's say the war in Vietnam, the Viet Cong were not fighting, they were also in the population fighting against the United States. And they were called the terrorists by the United States. And the Algerian at the independence against France, they were called terrorists. We are talking about an occupation, about a state who is since 48, like taking the lands of people, violating humans of people, and you don't want any resistance. This is insane what is happening. But because the media, and I'm back, and now the responsible is the one who is defending his lands. He become the terrorist. He become the criminal. And the other one who is bombing without respecting anything, say, the problem of this one because he's in the population with the others. You see how the story is presented in the other way.
I see. So the point is the resistance are always together with the population. You want to say in Vietnam or in the Middle East or any war. So it's
Any movement
difficult
of
to separate from population.
For example, France was occupied by Germany in the World War II. And the resistance in France, they were called terrorists by the German Nazi. But now these people are heroes in France because they are fighting against occupation.
I see. So it's complicated, right? So, but I mean, that is the main reason Israeli bombing and shooting the whole Palestinian villages. And
the main reason is if you follow the International Court of Justice, they raise some premise of a genocide in Palestine. The main reason is not to fight against Hamas, but to put these people out, to kill them, to take their lands. And this was happening in 1948. You can't convince me today that the reason is just to fight Hamas. You don't fight like by killing 40,000 of people. You want to kill all the population by the way you are doing it.
right, Israeli Palestinian Middle East conflict is a very long story, you know. It's not just now, it's been for many years. So,
but what is the image of this? Because in Europe, population now are more aware what is happening about Palestine there. When you have war or civil war, there is not one person who decide. There is a lot of persons, and to find the people who can, I will say, push for this peace, the real peacemakers. Because sometimes you think this person is has some power or influence, but you find in fact no, he can say something, but in the ground you have other things. So there's a lot of difficulties you have to take into account.
Maybe different demand from different group that will be easy, that will be not easy to settle down, you know, because some people demand more and the other people also demand more. Nobody can, you know, uh, give up. So how's negotiator your experience?
I would say I was not doing peace talks to find ceasefire or to sign peace. No, we were helping the peace process by discussing issues like after war, which government, how the political system will be. So if sometimes you find some common, I would say, questions that everyone is concerned by, every party in the conflict is concerned by it, it helps to put the people on the same table. After that, it's a work of, it's not one person or one group, it's like United Nations, international, like other states, that they will also help to conclude this peace. But I would say, like a puzzle, everyone can play or put an image to find a final solution or final agreement.
So you are on behalf of United Nations or
No, no, no. I'm not on behalf. I'm just independent expert. Sometimes that I'm called, but not for peace talks with United Nations. This was more with the Max Planck Foundation.
see?
As I said, for the peace talks, it was in Sudan. We have a program as Max Planck Foundation, this German academic society. We discussed with some group. With United Nations, I have not led any peace talks.